Hi, this is the Social Gelo with Angelo show. My name's Angelo. I'm a social scientist, surfer, martial artist, and a whole lot of other things. Coming to you live from Kasai City, Japan, the Social Gelo with Angelo show.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Social Gelo with Angelo. Today, I'm interviewing Mark Stewart. Did I get that right?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. As usual, today's episode is about hearing about Mark's martial arts journey, and that's what we're here for. One thing I want to say to my Kajukembo Ohana, Mark is not a Kajukembo martial arts practitioner, but he has worked with Kajukembo martial arts practitioners in the past, which is why he's on the show. And without further ado, Mark, thanks for being on the show, man.
Very welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, as I mentioned really briefly, you're not a Kajukembo guy. What martial art do you practice?
Actually, the best way to say that, I practice martial art. but yeah, I mean, I can start with my background. I think that's the best way to approach it. I started way back in the February of 1874. No, but close. It was 1974. And I remember seeing a James Bond movie called You Only Live Twice. It's the one where it takes place in Japan, right? And they were on the island and they had all the ninjas and stuff, and Masoyama's Kyokushinkai guys and all they were there. So that's kind of where I got the bug, I think. I mean, I had seen the Green Hornet and that stuff on TV, but I was a fan of the Batman show, so I didn't really get into the Green Hornet too much. But I was pretty cool when Bruce Lee was kicking ass and doing all this stuff on that. But and then of course the Kung Fu television series came out with David Carradine, and I think 73 or 74, I don't recall. But anyway, I started karate in Kalamazoo, Michigan. That's where I'm from. And it's Okinawan karate, but originally it's a Chinese system from Fujian province. It was referred to by the Okinawans as Pangai Nun. And basically it was a tiger, dragon, and crane Fujian fists. And so I started with that. I still do it. I became a fifth dan, Godan. And then I became a point fighter, point karate. Then I became a kickboxer. This is all still in the Midwest. Then I started learning Arnis, Filipino martial arts, and Wing Chun. Then I moved to the West Coast, where everything really happened. I moved to San Diego, but I was commuting up to Los Angeles on the weekends and training with Randy Williams in Wing Chun, and training with my buddy Louis Campos in Bruce Lee's martial art, Jun Fan Gung Fu, Jeet Kune Do, and various other things. And then eventually I moved up to Los Angeles and started at the Inosanto Academy, and was training primarily with Ted Lukai, who his family has a Kajukembo background. He also studied a little bit of Kaju as well. They grew up in Hawaii, so they have the Hawaii connection. And I think Ramos was the name of the instructor. I don't remember the first name. I should have prepared myself, but this was in San Pedro. They pronounce it San Pedro. But he was a well-known Kajukembo dude. Something Ramos.
Are you talking about Tony Ramos?
Yes, Tony Ramos. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Tony Ramos. So the Lukai, the father and the son trained with Tony Ramos. But their uncles too, back in Hawaii, were all Kajukembo people as well.
Oh, okay. So there's that Kajukembo connection.
Yeah, for sure. And so I started primarily training with Ted Lukai, and was doing Lukai Kali, and again Bruce Lee's martial art Jeet Kune Do. And Ted was also big into Wing Chun as well. So Wing Chun is kind of it's separate from JKD. I mean, they kind of have a love-hate relationship going on, but I'm into all of it, so I have none of that love-hate shit going on. And so what happened next? I continued to kickbox. I continued to research and develop and train and cross-train and things like that. And then, but Ted Lukai Lukai passed away in 1996, and I started training with Ted Wong, who was Bruce Lee's last private student. And that particular version, you could say, of Jeet Kune Do was the latter stage material where there was less and less of the Wing Chun influence and more of what I call fence boxing, or but applied to kicking and punching and all tools and all targets. But it was almost a Western martial art, to be honest with you. It was Bruce Lee's baby, and so that's the direction Ted Wong took it into. He passed away in 2010, and since that time, just doing my thing. Before the COVID, I had a worldwide seminar tour that I went on, including Australia, Europe, Southeast Asia, US, of course, and da-da-dee-da-da-da. But now I'm stuck here and I ride my bike every day for 5 hours, but it's fun. It's a great place to be stuck. So yeah, I live in Thailand, by the way. Yeah, I live in Sattahip, Thailand.
So,
oh yeah, and one more thing, I'll end it right here. But my latest project, okay, and it's kind of connected to Kaju Kembo, it's because it comes from the same family, is a kuntao. And kuntao is a Chinese word that it means basically, it means fist way, but it's just another word like gung fu or chuan fa or kempo or any of those names that describe that Chinese root. And so I'm busy on putting my kuntao curriculum together now, and that's my latest thing that I'm up to. And that's it. I'll shut up.
that's no worries. Actually, an element of my show that I've never outright said, but I probably should start saying, is the psychology behind it. I have a master's in psychology, so I'm always looking at things from the lens of psychology and social psychology and the dynamics between the individual and the societies and how they interact. So like one of the first questions I come up real quick, I guess my first question, how old were you when you were doing Okinawan karate?
I started at 14 years old.
14 years old, okay, in the Midwest.
Yeah.
So you're doing Okinawan karate, you're doing point karate. What were your thoughts? Like, and you didn't do anything before this. You just went, watch James Bond, watch some movies, Okinawan karate.
That's a damn good question. In reality, I was always interested in fighting. So, our little gang of kids and everything, basically, the way we would fight when we got into fights, whether it was play fighting or real fighting, was kind of a mix between boxing, wrestling, and American football with dirty tactics. So yeah, I mean, I was interested in fighting before I was interested in martial arts, but that soon changed. Yeah.
And as a kid, your friends, and at school, a few school. What's the word I'm looking for? I've been in Japan too long. I'm forgetting English. a few school fights.
Oh hell yeah, of course.
Few tussles here and there.
Of course.
And then eventually walk into your first Okinawan karate school. What was your impression? You're 14. You're walking into this place. You see a bunch of people wearing dogis. Any person who doesn't know what a dogi is, it looks like a giant white pajama, and you wear it with a belt. It's a little thicker than your average pajama, so it doesn't rip, but that's what it looks like. What was your impression of this? How as a kid, as a teenager coming in, what were your thoughts?
The formality of it all was really appealing to me because, I mean, actually, I was kind of rebellious. It was that Vietnam War era and stuff, and I had long hair like I do now again. And so we were all into the hippie thing and rebelling against everything. But somehow to that form of, how would you say, formality and almost military kind of approach was appealing to me. And I remember the smell. I remember this because back then the gis were actually canvas. They were that really thick cotton, and they have that really unique smell, right? And so that's like one of my first memories. I went with my dad in to sign up, and I asked the sensei, I said, so how long before I learn to do a flying side kick? And he goes, it's better to keep your feet on the ground, son.
Wow. So again, coming in from that era, right? It's a really, especially karate, right? It's a really strict hierarchy system. You start training. What was that transition like from training in the dojo to doing point karate? Like, how did you, what made you decide to start competing in point karate?
Well, I think I was into athletics before martial arts, and so I was into that empirical process of testing yourself, competing, for lack of better terms. So you're either fighting on the street or you're competing, or maybe a little bit of both, you know. Not too much, not too much. I mean, later on I got into bar fights and that kind of shit, worked the door and stuff. But so back to the point of point fighting was yeah, I just needed to test it somehow. But you know, it was really contrasting because the point fighting style really is its own style. You don't really get the chance to express your traditional martial art in point fighting. So it was kind of doing two separate things at the same time.
And for those of you who are listening that don't know what I'm talking about, that aren't martial artists, point style sparring, karate sparring, maybe you've seen it in the Olympics this year. It has to do with getting a point by striking lightly, big emphasis on lightly to the face, and a strike to the body. And there's a point system that's put together off either punching or kicking to the body or to the face. And it's usually done light contact with smaller gloves. That's the kind of style system he's talking about. So you did the point sparring, and then somewhere along the line you got into kickboxing. So I kind of want to find out, how was the kickboxing being offered at your school, or did you end up going somewhere else?
No, I was training with some boxing folks, and then traveling about an hour's drive each way to go to a kickboxing gym. I was living in Kalamazoo, so I would drive to Grand Rapids to train. Then I just found sparring partners locally as well. So, you know, for lack of better terms, it was karate kicks and boxing punches. But yeah, again, I needed to intensify the test. The point fighting was fun, but it's not really what I wanted. By the way, the point fighting we did, at least at black belt, in the black belt categories, we were hitting hard. But in the lower divisions, they would normally have the controlled punches like you were suggesting. But yeah, I needed, you know, by that time I started getting into the Bruce Lee thing, and the Tao of Jeet Kune Do book was out, and he talked about full contact fighting. I had read some articles in Black Belt magazine about this new thing called full contact, and yeah, I had to be a part of it. I had to do it, you know.
So you went to this kickboxing gym, and at the kickboxing gym, what were your first thoughts when you first did kickboxing for the first time? You've been doing Okinawan karate for a long time. You did the point sparring. What were some of the things that you noticed when you got into kickboxing?
You had to have excellent stamina and physical conditioning. The first thing, in fact, the first 3 fights I lost, and all of them were based because I simply was not in good enough shape. I remember puking, throwing up after the first fight, you know. And so if you stick with it, you have to put your road work in. You have to run stairs, hills, jump rope, you know, the whole thing. And so that's the biggest thing, because it's continuous. It's not fight 1 point, flash the flags from the judges. You're fighting the entire time that you're in the ring, you know. Yeah.
And so you did that for a while. How was what was the kickboxing like? I mean, I know where kickboxing is now, but what were the rule sets for kickboxing back then? Like, what did the gear look like?
Well, in the Midwest, we did the PKA rules, which was just kicking above the waist. So there were no leg kicks in PKA. So it was, you know, any hand techniques, including spinning back fist and then kicking to the body and the head. I fought amateur. It was three round matches, and of course you could knock the guy out as well, right? And so yeah, that's basically what it was in the Midwest. When I moved to California in '86, it was all included the kicks to the leg, so it was a little bit more like Muay Thai, but not with the elbows. And so I graduated over to that style of fighting out on the West Coast. My record is 15-5-1, and my last fight was in 1994, 94 or 96. I don't remember which one.
All right. And you went to the West Coast. You started competing in kickboxing there.
Yep.
And that's where you ended up starting to do the you started working on the with some JKD guys, is that?
Yeah, correct. Yep.
All right. And so you already read the Tao of Jeet Kune Do at that point. So you already had some ideas of what you wanted to do. What were your thoughts when you walked into the first JKD spot?
Actually, I was a bit disappointed because what had happened is that after Bruce Lee passed away and Dan and Santos started teaching in his backyard, okay, that was the original group that was from LA Chinatown, Bruce's last school, and then Dan taught in his backyard. But anyway, they opened their first gym in Torrance, California. It was called the Kali Academy, and that had a really hardcore reputation as full contact fighting, and and all that thing that was appealing to me. And so I missed out on that. I really planned to go out there in 1978 after graduating from high school in 77, but it took me till 86. And by that time, the hardcore nature of it kind of calmed down. I think mainly because of people getting threatening lawsuits and that kind of thing. And the US became the land of the lawsuit and everything involved a lawyer. So that's how I look at it. So I kind of just missed out on the era. But I became a private student of Ted Lukai Lukai. And at his class every Saturday, we did spar all the time, every time during a 3-hour session. Okay, it was about 1/3 of what we did was always sparring, with whether it was kickboxing or whether it was a stick or a knife. And but yeah, that's about it. So I was a little bit disappointed. What was interesting was this is what they refer, Dan Inosanto's school, he referred to Jeet Kune Do as Jeet Kune Do concepts. And that's different than the original Jeet Kune Do. The concepts is the idea of cross-training in a number of different styles at the same time. And you kind of finding your own personal method, okay? So that's not exactly what Jeet Kune Do is. But regardless, it's like the flip side of the coin, okay? So it was really interesting, but very, very complicated training. And that type of training really did not fit me too well. I prefer a simpler, more realistic approach, just my own personality. Not that people don't get good at it or that it's a bad thing, but it's just not my cup of tea.
All right. And so you did that for a bit, and then you ended up with and that's different from the Ted Wong JKD?
Yeah, the Ted Wong JKD is original, but it would be that latter stage of Bruce Lee's development. So, and all Ted's training was private training with Bruce in his backyard in Bel Air, when Bruce had some bucks still before he moved to Hong Kong. And so anyway, when Bruce Lee passed away, Ted Wong just followed that direction that his friend left him with, and he didn't cross-train in a number of different systems or try to add on things. He just took it in the direction of fencing and old school boxing methods applied to all tools, all targets.
And so at this point, you worked with Ted Wong for a bit, and then you decided, and this whole time you kept competing in kickboxing, is that correct?
No, Ted Wong, I didn't start with him till 97.
Oh, okay. So
that's after my last fight. Yeah, but I was contemplating doing something again, but it just never worked out. I mean, in regard to competition, I was too old. Come on, you gotta be for real, But I wanted to do sansao, with the takedowns. I wanted to do shoot boxing, which is in Japan.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So those kind of things I still wanted to experience, but yeah, it didn't happen.
Okay. So what did you pursue a professional kickboxing career, or were you?
No,
did
never
you stick to
did.
amateur?
Never did. But I did fight internationally.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
In fact, I fought the world champion in Savat in France.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
He did win the fight, but I did a damn good job before he got me.
So again, and I think it's important to say that. So like some people think that, especially now with social media, like they feel that the path of a martial artist is imprinted in championships and a career. and there's actually multiple paths. And I would say, after doing this for as long as I've done it, about maybe 90% of the martial artists I've met have their own lives, jobs, careers, and then they have their martial arts that they do that sometimes turns into a career, sometimes it doesn't, but they have their own life. And then there's the 10% that have a whole career based in martial arts.
I mean, my career since 1992 has been teaching martial arts.
Oh, cool. So again, your career is still part of the martial arts career path, which is, again, rare. I would say like 10% of people make a whole career just teaching martial arts.
Yeah, there's not really a lot of money in it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but
again, I mean, it can be if you do some things, but for me, it was multi-genre. In other words, I taught law enforcement, military, kids, disabled people, fighters, criminals. Some of my best friends are cops, some are criminals. And, they still have a beer together, no problem.
Yeah, that's true though. You never know who's going to come into your school. So
well, I mean, maybe criminals is a strong word, but scoundrels for damn sure.
But again, what I'm trying to clarify is how again, like a lot of people feel, and again, not to say, because I've had all kinds of people on the show. I have had your career path martial arts instructor or martial and fighter that had that kind of life. In Kajikembo, in our circle, my instructor and all the people I knew, they loved martial arts, but as you said, it's kind of hard to make a whole career out of it, and it's very commendable to the people that do that. But as you know, I think artists always struggle with with that. Hey, once you have art involved, there's always that struggle of trying to get your art and do what you want to do and express your art. And this goes almost beyond martial arts, but just art in general. Entertainers, musicians. There's always this point where you have your art that you love, that you want to express, and then there's the money, and it's really challenging to make those two things coincide.
I've been a starving artist for most of the martial arts career.
Yeah.
Okay, but where I did the best was right before I moved to Thailand and Los Angeles. I had my school in Chinatown. I was teaching at USC, UCLA, Cal State Long Beach, Mount San Antonio College, actually about 8 universities or colleges. I was teaching fitness kickboxing, which were heavy bag workouts at fitness centers. I was teaching like about 30 hours a week, and I was pulling in some good bread, but I was working my butt off too. So I go, wait a minute, I'm not supposed to work this hard,
So yeah, like I think that's the thing though. Like one of the things that I feel nowadays, and I love MMA. I love the UFC venues and stuff. But one of the things that I've seen it has done for a lot of the younger generation is a lot of these kids have a different impression of what the outcome should be of being a martial artist, or like of living a martial arts. Like it's totally different from when MMA started, and I have people coming in now saying I want to do MMA, and they have like a completely different mindset of what that's gonna have for them compared to maybe someone like you who came in, few school tussles, as you said, Gendo, Okinawan karate, more about personal development. There was no, when you started, and I know even though I started much later than you, even when I started, there wasn't a very clear career path. There wasn't fighters, martial artists weren't getting like what was Conor McGregor's last fight? I think it was 200 million because he talked a bunch of shit with Floyd Mayweather, and he got like he's one of the first. I don't know if he's the first, but he's from what I know. I think I'm safe in saying he's definitely made the most money. No doubt. That didn't exist. Like that was not even a close. I wouldn't even fathom if you would have told me when I started that, hey, you can talk a bunch of shit to a pro boxer as a martial artist and get a $200 million fight, win or lose. Like that wasn't even on the table. So my mindset when I got into it, I saw the UFC when I saw the first UFC fights, they were like on VHS with the Gracies, and it wasn't for the money. It looked very much like a blood sport, and it looked more like it didn't really look like something that there was a career there. It was just like, all right, well, you go here to prove yourself to these other martial artists that you can do it, but no one even mentioned any money. So like it's kind of strange now. The new generation comes in with that a total different like mindset. Like, hey, there's money to be made, and I kind of want to go this track. So I think it's important to let people know that there's still a lot of the martial artists that get into it that has nothing to do with that path. And that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, well, one of the things that was appealing to me was philosophy. I mean, I right away I got into the whole Zen and Taoist thing, you know, and J. Krishnamurti and all of that kind of thing. Miyamoto Musashi's Book of Five Rings, you know, that's the bread and butter stuff for me. You know.
And as you develop that stuff, you started developing your own martial art, which I have a note here that you referred to as kunta.
I wouldn't call it my own martial art, but it's definitely a category of martial arts. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I mean, Ted Lucai's what they call mano mano, which is kind of bastardized Spanish and Filipino dialect. I think it's Tagalog. I'm not sure. It could be something else. But anyway, yeah, it was already in the Lucai's method, the Kunta, which is the Chinese influence to weapon-centric empty hand martial arts, if that makes any sense to you. You know, when I say weapon-centric, what I mean?
I'm going to let you explain it. If I were to try to guess, if it's weapon-centric empty hand martial arts, I'm guessing disarms. Is that what you're trying to get at?
Well, that's one half, one side of the coin is dealing with someone with a weapon, but the other side of the coin is using your tools as if they were weapons.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's that approach, and it just happened that his mano mano was primarily kuntao, so I would call it kuntao kali silat. There's a little bit of silat in regards to some really devastating kind of takedowns and sweeps, but yeah, and the whole fact that I started with Wei Qiru, which came from Fujian province, China, it was just unfinished business with me to complete this. And, you know, and I'm pretty much devoting a lot of time now to research and development in regard to that.
And you ended up in the seminar circuit. Like you mentioned, you were doing these seminars. How do you end up in the seminar circuit?
I started doing that when I had my school in Chinatown. That's when I was coming to Japan. And I started, well, actually my first international teaching assignment was in Singapore in 1989. And then nothing really after that till around, 93 and 94. 93, I went to Singapore. 94, I went to Japan. I went to Thailand just to train Muay Thai, and then I went to Singapore again, went to Malaysia to do a TV show on Filipino martial arts. It was a martial arts TV show called Mahaguru, and that was cool. And that's kind of when I started the seminar thing. And then in the 90s, I was doing California and the Midwest also on a yearly basis. Yeah.
And what were you teaching at the seminars?
JKD and Kali.
Okay, JKD and Kali. And so obviously you continued to be in the JKD circle. You're still in the JKD circle now, if I'm.
Yeah, I still teach. I mean, hopefully next year I'll be back out on the road again, doing everything that I normally do. Yeah, or whenever that happens, you know.
And how did you get involved in the seminar circuit? Was it something like you called a number? Did someone approach you? How did that happen?
No, I just did it. I said, I'll be here. Show up.
All right, cool. So could you give me a little, do you mind sharing a little more details, like how that happened or who you contacted?
Well, I guess, I mean, originally, okay, I'll go back to the Singapore. In Singapore, my Wing Chun Sifu, Randy Williams, moved there and was teaching there. So I stayed with him for a month in Singapore, and he was kind enough to allow me to teach Filipino martial arts to his Wing Chun students. And he had 100 students at the time.
Oh, okay.
And so that was my first taste of it. So that wasn't actually a seminar, it was just international teaching. But then I started writing articles, articles for Inside Kung Fu Magazine and Inside Karate. And so I became somewhat of a glitterazzi kind of dude, you know. Well, just known. I was known. I was an author, right? And I was on the cover a couple times and did videotapes for that. And so then people started hitting me up to travel to do seminars.
Okay. And
Yeah.
and how did you end up getting an inside Kung Fu? Did you just like write an article? Did you contact an editor? How did that process work?
That was another connection. Everything in my life is based on a connection with friends.
Okay.
That's just the way it works. That's the way it works. I mean, that's only a foot in the door. Okay. To get the rest of the way in the door and not get kicked out, that's based upon what your skills and charm you may have or not. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So it was Randy Williams, my Wing Chun Sifu, that was well known in writing articles about Wing Chun. And he brought me in as one of the dummies for photo sessions, and also as a partner for his video series. And so I met the owner of the magazine and the editors, and they said, well, what do you do anything else? And I said, yeah, Okinawan karate, kickboxing, and Kali. And so I began to write articles on all those subjects, and that's basically how it rolled.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So you ended up in that, and then you said that the Singapore teaching, a lot of students sounds it was kind of like your first experience teaching a large group like that of 100 people, or
Yeah, definitely that, and also my introduction to Asia, you know.
all right. And what was that like? What was it like going from reading about, studying on Eastern martial arts, Eastern philosophy, and then finally actually being out in the East? How was that transition for you?
I loved it. I was in heaven. I didn't want to go back. I said, I have to move to Asia, you know, and I finally did in 2000. But in the meantime, I would also make trips back as often as possible, you know, because I just loved it, man. And see, at the time in '89, Singapore was still old-fashioned kind of place. It's not like it is now. Now it's like, whoa. It's like
Yeah,
a
no,
super city.
yeah.
I mean, have you been to Changi Airport, the airport?
I haven't been to Singapore yet. I have friends that are from Singapore, so I see their Facebook posts, and Singapore to me just looks a lot like modern Shanghai. Like it's a huge city, metropolitan. Well, my friend is really rich, so but from the impression I get from him is that a lot of people in Singapore are pretty like they've got a pretty big wealthy, like
if you want to have
there's a lot of wealthy people there.
If you want to have a car, you do, yeah.
Yeah, because like what I see from him, what I've seen from the martial artists that I've met, some people that if there's this thing called Evolve University, and it's become a connection to one FC championship, one championship, right? So like that's the part of Singapore I know of. But what you're explaining, how was Singapore back then? What did it look like? What was it like?
Well, '89, it was old fashioned. It reminded me what maybe like Hawaii was back in the '60s or something. And so I really like that a lot. I like old stuff and new stuff. I really enjoy contrasts. But we actually ended up moving to Singapore and living there for 2 years, my wife and my daughter and I, when my daughter was just 1 year old. So we spent 2 years there. I was training law enforcement in Singapore as a full-time job, and then teaching my JKD and Kali on the side. I was teaching Immigration Checkpoints Authority, which is like their border patrol kind of thing. And but it had changed drastically from 89 to 93 and 94. It started changing a bit, and then I went back. And when did I go? The next trip I went back was like 2004, and then I was hired by my friend who had a security company there, and taught the cops. And so we moved there for 2 years, and then after that we headed back to Thailand. Yeah. But it changed. Your point. I mean, it changed into this ultra modern city, but it still has some charm. It still has some old charm. When I go back now, I stay at hell's the name of it? I can't remember the area right now, but it's like an old Chinatown area that I stay in, and that's where all the hookers are and shit, you know.
Gotcha.
Not that I participate, but I mean, I like being in that shady kind of world, you know.
So this whole area, like, it changed a lot. It used to be more, now it's a metropolitan city. So you're in Singapore. I'm going to go back to 1986. You were in Singapore. You stayed there for a little bit, and then when you went and did your, where and when did you do your first seminar, like your official one?
It would be in California.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know where. Gee, that's a damn good question. What was the first one? No, the first one would have been Michigan. Kalamazoo, Michigan, at the original dojo that I came from.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yep.
So you went back. You went back
Yep.
to the Okinawan school.
Yep.
And when was that?
1991, probably.
91. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And you went back to do a seminar on the JKD stuff that you did and the
JKD and Kali, yeah.
in Kali.
Yeah.
How did the Okinawan school? Because they're very traditional. How did they take in all that? Like,
They were very receptive to it. Yeah, and so very pleasantly surprised by that. And throughout the years, you know, I continued to do that. Yes.
wow. So and you still, it sounds like throughout this whole journey, you as you transition to other arts, you kept your network, like your connections to your previous instructors, the relationships you built.
Yeah, correct. I've kept them
intact.
all. I've kept them all. Yeah.
You stayed intact, because like, which is really difficult to do with traditional martial arts, because a lot of the traditional instructors get pretty upset if you go somewhere else and start training.
Yeah.
They're not really. I'm not gonna make a generalized statement and say all of them are like that, but you know, there are a few instructors out there, especially from the more traditional arts, that don't really like it when students do that.
Yeah, typically not, but I've been very, you know, blessed in regard to that. Yeah, I have all my relationships with everyone.
That's cool. That's
yeah,
cool.
and they become my seminar hosts.
Yeah, that's a way to work it right there.
Yeah, man.
So you went to Singapore. You did your first seminar. You started getting into the seminar circuit, doing seminars internationally for doing JKD and FMA. You went from where and how did you end up in Thailand?
Well, I came in '94 to train Muay Thai at Sityodtong, a very famous Muay Thai camp in Pattaya. That's where we live now for the past 16 years. Is in the Chonburi province, which is Pattaya is the most famous city. It's I think the third largest city in Thailand. First Bangkok, then Chiang Mai up north, then Pattaya. But we don't live in Pattaya. We live in Sattahip. We live towards heading towards Cambodia, and that's right on the Gulf of Thailand, the eastern seaboard. So I'm like 20 minutes from the beach on my bicycle.
Oh, okay.
Up in the coastal foothills. It's lovely over here, dude. I never want to leave. So, but anyway, so I first came in '94 to train Muay Thai, and again I said to myself, "Oh man, I gotta move back here. I gotta move here," you know. And so it took me till 2000, and I met my wife, and you know, I'm here. I have family here, and all that.
So you met your wife in 2000.
Actually, well, I guess I met her about 2003, I think it was, and then we got married in 2004. Yeah.
Okay, so you moved to Thailand to live there.
I opened the gym, dude. I had a gym in Bangkok, right?
Okay.
On the SkyTrain line.
And what kind of gym did you open there?
JKD and FMA.
FMA. Okay. And so you opened a gym. You came back to Thailand to open a gym in JKD and FMA. Was there any other JKD FMA people there, or were you the first one?
First one, pretty much. I don't think I was the first one to teach there, but I was the first one to open a gym. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at what kind of programs did you offer at that gym?
Well, I had children's class because you can't pay the rent unless you do. Plus, I enjoyed teaching kids, to be honest with you, because it's that balance of playfulness and military, you know, and they love that contrast. And of course, I had women's kickboxing classes and then Jeet Kune Do and FMA classes separately, mostly adult males, but had a couple of females in particular that became really, really good at it. One of them is an instructor, also at instructor level now, Miss Nikki. And yeah, it was fun. I mean, you know, from Thai people that I had Thai students, I had British students, French students, any Americans? I don't remember if I had a couple of Americans, yeah. And but they were from everywhere, some Aussies and stuff like that. You know, it was quite a mixed group. It was cool.
And did any of your students compete out there, or did you just mostly?
Yeah, some did at an amateur level, yes.
Okay, what did they
But
compete?
I've never really had as much as I've wanted to be able to train fighters per se in competition. For some reason, I mean, those people aren't really attracted to JKD and FMA. It's kind of a different world, you know. You would have to specifically. I mean, I would have specifically had to say Sansao, Muay Thai, or MMA in order to attract that kind of crowd, you know.
Yeah, it's a marketing thing. Like,
Yeah, it is. You know, it's all split up into the genres and people's mentality of in their mind what they think it is, and they're usually wrong.
like that. The thing that you're touching on a really good thing, a really good topic here. One of the problems I had when I opened my my school out here in Japan was, first of all, everyone can pronounce Kajukembo in Japanese, but they had no idea what it meant. And then when I'd explain to them what it meant, it made less sense than if I would have just let it go and just at the point I'm at now, literally when people call, my wife used to try to explain over the phone what it was, and they'd just come in and be like, okay, sounds good. Can you just teach me boxing then? Because if your acronym says karate, jujitsu, kempo, kung fu, bo boxing, kickboxing, I just want to do boxing. So can you tell them to just teach me boxing? And she's like, he says no. He says he's not just going to teach you boxing because it's not part of this. It's part of the system, but you need to learn the complete art. So it took forever to get past that point. What we started just telling students was just come in, just come in. If you're scared, just watch a class. If you like what you see, great. If you don't, go somewhere else. But But the marketing part was always really difficult because then, as you said, if you want to attract fighters, you want to put the marketing thing. So then I called, like right now we have Kajukembo Hyogo Japan here, and my logo says Level Up Gym, and the Level Up Gym was supposed to represent the facility because I have other people that train from other arts there. So the facility was supposed to present kind of an MMA gym.
Yeah.
But because MMA is not that very popular in Japan, I had people asking me about fitness courses. Like people started calling me saying, "Hey, I want to lose some weight. You know, what recommendations? What kind of training regimens do you have at this Level Up Gym?" And I was like, "Oh man, this is a nightmare." So how about you, man? How'd that go? You're in Thailand and you're teaching JKD. How did the community? How did you get past that? How did you explain to people what it was, and what kind of people did it ended up attracting?
I never got past it. The only thing I had going for me is I was on a number of television shows and got a lot of coverage and some newspaper interviews, magazine interviews. So that was helpful. But the problem with the JKD thing is Bruce Lee. What I mean by that is no disrespect, but they think it's movie shit that they're coming in to learn. You know, that's in their mind, that's what they're thinking. Or number two, they're thinking it's Wing Chun and Chisao, blindfolded Chisao. Or they're thinking it's cross training in 8 different styles at the same time. And the way that I teach this is none of those 3 at all. So yeah, I've never won that battle. You know, I don't care anymore. I'm like you. I said, whatever, you come on in, and it's not for you, then, you know, have a Coke and a smile.
Yeah.
And don't let the door hit you on the way out. You know.
Yeah. No, yeah, I've had yeah. That it's a challenge. But you finally did get a core group though. Like it sounds like you have an instructor. So like you got to this point where obviously some people understood what you were trying to do and they stuck with you and you kind of got some other people teaching it now too. So like
correct. Yeah.
So you did get, even though you said you didn't get past it, in a sense you kind of did because people stuck around long enough. People stuck around long enough to become an instructor.
I didn't get past it in the sense of being commercially successful.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that that's one of the things I get asked that same question a lot being out in Japan, and if you have a style that isn't like JKD and very similar to Kaji Kembo, if you have a I hate to even use the word style. I like to use the word more philosophy or approach or method. If you have that kind of a method, people that are more regimented into styles have a harder time figuring things out.
Yep.
Figuring things out. That's one of the things. And then for competition, it gets even more dicey because then I have ended up with fighters and that do compete. And the way that works is I have to be very specific as far as like, okay, what do you want to compete in? So now we're going to keep putting you through the curriculum. But if you're going to compete in something, I need to take you to the side and make sure that for your competition, you're practicing the reps that you need to win that sport. Because that's going to be what we're doing. Which is just ultimately means more work for you as the instructor.
I mean, since 2010, I basically decided only to teach privates and seminars. That's it. And that's all I've been doing since 2010, privates and seminars.
Cool. And then
of course, during the COVID thing, it's all been online, instructional online stuff, you know.
Cool. So that, like you were saying, COVID. So when you said COVID made you get stuck in Thailand, you weren't really meaning like you live in Thailand. What you were trying to explain was that you're kind of stuck. You can't do your work.
Yeah, I can't travel.
You can't travel anymore.
But I'm all right with that. I mean, it's been great. Like I say, I just ride my bicycle to the beach and then up in the hills. And I go out at 4 a.m. when it's still dark. It's a blast, man.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we're almost to the end of our interview here.
Yeah.
One of the questions I always ask people when I'm interviewing them about their martial arts journey is, let's say someone's listening to this, randomly found this YouTube video, and they aren't part of my Kajikami community. They're kind of learning a little bit about everything right now with just this one interview. And they're just wondering, hey, I'm interested. Sign me up. I want to do martial arts. This sounds cool. What would you recommend they look for when joining a place to train?
That's a damn good question. Well, I would have to answer it based on how I would look for one now. Okay. And it would have to be rapport with the instructor. Number one, that on a personality basis that I get along with the person. However, to recommend that to everyone, I'm not sure if that's the right way, because in retrospect, I don't think that was always the case with me. I didn't necessarily have to get along with the instructor, but I still learned good stuff, right? But at this point, that's how I would approach it now. If I don't get on with them and have the same vibe, I'm really not interested, you know. But what I would say is that they really should look beyond what they think that it is. They should really spend some time researching the full spectrum of what it can give us. Philosophy, science, physical fitness, self-defense, cultural enrichment, you name it, right? Those things. And if they begin to research those things, then I think they can find, you know, the right place to go to.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, there's no right or wrong answer to this question. This is something I always ask everyone.
Yeah.
I never know who's going to come across the video, and I think it's pretty cool to. I said this to John, one of my other guests, John Hackelman. that I've been trying to find a universal theory of martial arts, things that connect, philosophies that connect us all. And he told me, good luck on that. But one thing I have found, even though he said good luck on that, I have actually found some luck as far as what you mentioned about repertoire. That seems to be something coming up from a lot of different instructors from different styles, from different backgrounds. A lot of them have mentioned repertoire. So like that's, if anybody's listening to this, there are, not to say there's a right or wrong answer, but when you start hearing a theme between a lot of instructors, that's definitely something you want to start keeping an eye out for.
I think you have to trust your instinct, you know?
Yeah. As my instructor put it, is even if you can learn something from someone you don't like, you're eventually to get to a point where you're not going to be able to put up with it anymore. As he said, it's about how much of an asshole can you put up with until one point or another.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Well, hey, man, thanks again for being on the show. I really appreciate that. For you listeners, I always mention this because it sounds weird because when I record this, there's no music playing. But right now, the wrap-up music is playing. So thank you for checking out Social Gelo with Angelo. And as always, I try to bring out 2 podcasts a month. And the YouTube channel has an array of topics from psychology to martial arts. And I'll catch you all next time. Peace.